Between the 3rd and 5th centuries, thousands of men walked into the Egyptian desert and discovered something neuroscience is still trying to prove. They weren't running from the law. They weren't hiding from scandal or debt. They made a calculated decision. The noise of civilization, the status games, the endless acquisition, the social performance was costing them their minds. So they left, stripped everything down, and what they built became the Apophthegmata Patrum, a collection of sayings and stories that reads less like scripture and more like a manual for radical decision-making under existential pressure. Here's what we're dealing with. Roughly 5,000 monks spread across the Nitrian desert and Ceres region, living in cells separated by miles of sand. No running water, no electricity, no one to impress. The oldest and most revered among them, Abbas Antony, Abbas Macarius, Abbas Moses, became the architects of a philosophy that solved for one variable above all else. How do you stop wanting what's killing you? Exhibit 1. Abbas Antony spent 20 years in his cell, not meditating on marble steps, in a mud brick room fending off what the texts call demons, which modern readers would recognize as intrusive thoughts, compulsive urges, the psychological cost of radical isolation. He documented every battle, every moment he wanted to leave, wanted comfort, wanted to be seen, and he stayed. The cost was everything his old life offered. The return was clarity. Exhibit 2. Abbas Moses, a former bandit, asked his teacher how to achieve peace. The teacher took him to the rooftop at sunset and said, "Look west." Moses looked at the valley filling with darkness. "Now look east." The eastern sky still held light. The teacher said, "As the light fades, so do the passions. Darkness comes to all equally." That's not poetry. That's a strategic lesson in perspective. The things you fear losing, status, comfort, relevance, are being taken from everyone simultaneously. Exhibit 3. A younger monk asked Abbas Zosimas how to find God. Zosimas didn't hand him a prayer. He sent him to live on bread and water for a year. At the end, the monk returned, transformed. He'd expected enlightenment. Instead, he got something more useful. He'd learned exactly what his body needed versus what his mind was addicted to wanting. The cost was measurable. Bread, water, 12 months. The benefit was a recalibrated nervous system. These weren't ascetics performing suffering for an audience. There was no audience. They were engineers solving a specific problem. How do you design a life where your worst enemy, your own mind, stops running the strategy? The answer they arrived at was counterintuitive. You don't fight desire. You remove its fuel source. You reduce the decision surface. You live so simply that every moment becomes a choice to either stay or leave. The Apophthegmata records thousands of these exchanges. A monk complains about boredom. He's told to weave baskets and sell them, then give the money away. The repetition dissolves the complaint. Another asks how to pray. He's told to watch his breath until he stops counting it. Another fears he's wasting his life. He's asked, compared to what? The pattern is relentless. Strip the problem to its skeleton. Remove what doesn't serve it. Act. What's striking is how modern this sounds. These men were grappling with problems your generation calls burnout and decision fatigue. They understood that every possession you own is a variable in your decision tree. Every social obligation is a cognitive load. Every comparison point is a wound waiting to reopen. So they did the thing most of us can't imagine. They volunteered for constraint. Here's where the strategy gets interesting. They didn't stay isolated forever. The Apophthegmata is full of visitors, younger monks, seekers, people from towns, coming to the desert to ask for counsel. These men had become the most sought-after advisors of their era. By removing themselves from the game, they'd become invaluable to it. They'd traded visibility for authority, noise for influence. The texts don't hide the cost. Monks died alone, some went mad, some left and never came back. The failure rate was real, but the ones who stayed, who made it past the first 5 years, reported something consistent across centuries of accounts. They stopped being afraid, not because they'd found God, though many believed they had, because they'd found the bottom of their own desires and discovered it was solid ground. Here's the practical translation. They proved that your anxiety about losing things is proportional to how much space those things occupy in your life. A man with one robe doesn't fear losing it in the same way a collector fears loss. A monk with no reputation can't be humiliated by scandal. The cost of freedom, they discovered, was the willingness to be nobody in a world that measures you by what you own and what people say about you. The Apophthegmata wasn't written as a how-to guide for monasticism. It was written as a record of decisions made under pressure with what each man knew at the time. A younger monk decides to stay. An older monk decides to teach. A visitor decides to return to the city. Every choice is documented because every choice reveals something about what humans need to survive psychologically. You don't need to move to the desert, but you do need to understand the principle. Every simplification is a small freedom. Every decision you don't have to make is energy you reclaim. Every possession you eliminate is a variable removed from the equation. The monks proved this through radical experiments. You can test it in smaller increments: a week without social media, a month without new purchases, a day with a single task. The reason this matters now is that your civilization is running the opposite experiment. It's adding complexity at every level: more choices, more possessions, more people to impress, more metrics to track. You're being asked to optimize for everything simultaneously: fitness, wealth, status, knowledge, relationships, and the psychological cost is showing up in the data. Anxiety disorders have tripled in 2 decades. The desert monks weren't prophets. They were strategists who ran a 1,500-year experiment and documented the results. The Apophthegmata is their lab notebook, and the findings are consistent. Reduce the surface area of what you're defending, and you've solved half your problems before you've even begun. So the bold claim stands: those men didn't find inner peace despite their poverty. They found it because of it. They'd identified the variable that matters most, constraint, and they'd weaponized it, not as punishment, as strategy. If you're looking to cut through the noise and make decisions the way ancient strategists did, subscribe. Every week, we examine one decision that changed everything.